program. Boy, what a day we've had. Absolutely fantastic conversation. Starting off with the issue of the National Union of Road Transport Workers, how effective that body has been in providing and improving the transportation culture and dispatch or delivery in Nigeria. Fantastic conversation earlier on in the day, and up until we had a lunch hour conversation, which I was totally besides myself. It was just hilarious. You guys are absolutely amazing. Well, I can always say no one does nighttime radio and daytime radio like we do right here on 92.3 Nigeria Info. So it's time for us to get to the Architect's Corner this afternoon, and boy, something intriguing right up our sleeves this afternoon. My guest, you may have heard of him before, A.B. Bozimo, architect A.B. Bozimo. Good afternoon to you, sir, and welcome.
Hi, good afternoon, Jude. Good afternoon, wonderful listeners.
I'm beginning to think you like to come here because you've been told you have a great radio voice. You are not going to steal my job. You are not.
Jude.
Keep doing your architect thingy. Don't try and use your smooth voice on us. Don't do that.
The whole benefit for me is just being in the same studio as you, Jude. There's no greater joy.
You're trying to do the voice thing again. Anyway, so Architect Bozimo is my guest. And those of you who probably are wondering, wait, that name sounds familiar. Yes, well, that's because it's an Izon kind of name. I didn't say joy, I said Izon.
That's the right way.
So you know that we're going down to a deep roots. But anyway, gather around. Today we get into the Architect's Corner. It's been a few months since you and I last had a conversation.
Absolutely.
So it's a pleasure to see you once again.
Always my pleasure.
Well, let's get straight into our meet. What are we looking at this afternoon?
Designing for alternative agriculture methods.
Designing for
agriculture, alternative agriculture methods.
Here,
yes. Yeah. A few months ago, Jude, you had a conversation with me on air where we talked about alternative housing. Mm-hmm. Then we talked about container housing, the possibilities, the benefits.
Yeah, some people made comments about how safe is it, the health benefits,
precisely, how convenient, the sizes. All that was very useful in that sector. Back again, we're in a time where, number one, the government is always talking about agriculture and how it can help improve our economy. This is one major stimulus we're talking about. Also, the methods of farming are evolving every day.
Over the past 30 years in particular, the farming methods all across the globe has been
moved forward. Yeah. There's more productivity in many cases. There's more diversity of sources.
With the same size of land.
And then most importantly, because of other environmental and climatic factors, there is in some places a decrease in fertility in the land and productivity.
Which you actually can't avoid, because if you continue to take from the land,
it loses its ability to support growth. And with the changes in weather, it's no more so predictable. There was a time when you could say there was an August break. I don't think we've seen a real formal August break in this region for 2 to 3 years now.
A very long time, if I'm honest. No, but I think last year there was an August break for like a week or so.
Yeah,
but prior to that, it was
really so. And around the world, of course, we heard how snow fell in Texas, of all places. The world's climate is changing, so there's
minus 10 degrees.
Honestly, unheard of there. And because, just on a sidebar, because they are totally unprepared for that kind of weather, it gets much colder in other places like Canada, minus 30 degrees. But because they know what to do and they have the equipment, they take care of it in seconds. In Texas, they were completely caught off guard.
Power gone,
everything. So in the narrow area of agriculture, there are other methods that people are contemplating so that, one, they can better utilize the land. In some cases, they can avoid soil erosion. In other cases, they can bring a certain control in terms of the environment in which you're farming. And some of those methods are what you call hydroponics, where fundamentally what you're doing is eliminating, to an extent, the area of land you would otherwise use to grow your crops, and maybe moving things into either greenhouses or even containers. Containers are widely available.
Yes.
Once they have brought their goods, often
they're usually left to
they're
rot.
not optimally used. They rot, or people cut them into smaller things, which is fine. But on the agriculture front, there exists the opportunity to set up certain farming systems, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Because even that, you want to approach it in the right way in order to maximize your effort, your investment, and your yield. This is actually going in the whole modern way of more sustainable methods of everything. When it comes to building, at this point in the world, we are looking for more sustainable buildings. When it comes to any other thing, talk of cars. With cars, they're moving away from fossil fuel cars
from combustible engines.
Exactly, to electric. So it's no surprise, therefore, that with agriculture, they'll be doing something along those lines. It's not as advanced yet, but that means the opportunities exist there for it to expand. And when we've talked about, challenges on a political level, which is not our topic here, with some clashes between certain parts of agriculture and other parts of agriculture, this can be one of the solutions, because the good thing about the container, at least, is it can be located anywhere. It can be located
easily sourceful.
Precisely, and it can be positioned even near to or within urban environments, so that it's less likely to have people trespassing within or around it, and it's portable. You can have a set of containers here and move them to another location later on. So
we see that a lot with. I see some of these servicing companies moving porta cabins.
Precisely, tiny homes and all that. So there's that too about it. So what really, we can start from our fundamental definition of what hydroponic farming is. Basically, hydroponic farming is related to using or growing plants in sand, gravel, or liquid. It's also sometimes called aquaculture or soilless culture, tank farming, anything where you are immersing the roots of the plant inside nutrient-enriched liquid. Now, the normal thing we all did it in agriculture in school. You find a piece of land, you plant your seed, you let rain or you irrigate it, and then of course it takes root and it grows. This is standard. It's been done since prehistoric times. But with the changes we're talking about, people are now coming to a point where they create this controlled environment within containers. And the good thing about containers, they can be stacked 8 high if you want. Okay? They provide services. What are those services? You want to have the right kind of water. You want to have the right kind of nutrients, and that's where, of course, our soil engineers and our botanists and all those scientific people can come right into reckoning, and everybody, of course, in the agriculture sector. And then you're providing power, and depending on how you arrange and lay these things out, you're enhancing the ability to harvest, and that's where the architecture and the layout comes very much into play. First of all, you have the concept. You want to move to hydroponic farming, perhaps. So how will you position these containers? That's the first design. How will vehicles that are going to supply seedlings maybe, or evacuate or harvest the yield, position themselves? How will they turn the circulation pattern in and around your farm, because it's a farm, even if it's vertical? And then how will you feed the various plants within the containers in terms of their liquids, in terms of providing power? Remember, we're talking about using sustainable methods. These are the kind of places where you would, of course, want to have solar panels to provide the power to light up the necessary lights.
Because the light is a very key
photosynthesis. It's central to plants growing. So you can say it's semi-high-tech only because you're putting these components that are very well known together in a slightly different way for a slightly specific purpose.
Yeah, I think more or less in a limited environment.
Limited space.
Yeah.
We all know about solar panels. Everybody has seen a container. We all know what kind of plants we want to eat and grow. But now you're combining that environment, those services, and trying to ensure that when you have control, and now sometimes in Nigeria, some things are grown at a certain season. You know, there's this time where you say, oh, it is mango season.
Mango season, bananas,
it is
yeah.
In this kind of farming, you are in control. You can have seasonless plants where, as long as it's taking the right time for that agricultural product to grow, it can be available almost all the year. Then the farm itself is just one part of the equation. And this is where agriculture can get very interesting and exciting. You have the planting places where people are, growing. Then you have the harvest. What happens? Are you going to have the massive waste that characterizes our current agriculture sector?
I think you couldn't have said it any better. Talking about the very perennial characteristic waste.
Honestly,
sometimes it's not just the product waste, but sometimes the byproduct. One of the most beautiful things, I'm sure you probably have seen this as well, being an Izon man. You know that the plantain tree for us is never wasted.
Exactly.
Almost everything
component has a
everything,
use.
Everything is useful.
Absolutely.
The skin, they use it.
The leaves, exactly.
Even when the plantain is overripe, I see people throw it away.
It has a purpose.
The Izon man knows how to use it.
Exactly.
So, how do we get? So now we're talking about changing the mindset of agriculture, alternative methods. And if you're joining us, you might be surprised that an architect is talking about agriculture. But hear him out, ladies and gentlemen, because the focus here is, as a designer, as an architect, how do you now come through to design?
That is it. It is not incidental. In many cases, with very fertile soil in Nigeria, you can just drop a seed and it will grow.
It will grow.
That's fine. But that seed is subject to many things. The vagaries of weather, animals eating it, rain not falling. There are many things that can happen. Improper planting, improper spacing. But with this kind of methods of farming, let's call it more scientific, because you're going to be basing your farming methods on specifics and standards that will maximize your yield. So I know it's not everything that can be grown like this, but there are many of the fundamental vegetables.
Yes, as you make mention, I can imagine people trying to grow tubers of yam.
That might be less likely.
Yeah.
But there was one viral video recently where somebody showed that they were able to grow tubers of yam in sacks at the back of their house.
Yeah, but I think the sacks had soil.
They had soil, but the relatively compact space.
Yes.
So maybe those sacks could have been inside a container too. I don't know, but we saw that video. It just showed that people are thinking
outside the box.
Exactly. Or in this case, thinking into a box called a container.
Because we're using the containers. Oh, that's very brilliant.
Exactly.
So now we're talking about getting seedlings.
Yes.
In these nutrient-enriched environments.
Exactly.
Where the power sourcing has to be sorted out, preferably
solar. So you're not dependent on the national
grid.
grid. That in this environment is not as reliable as it ought to be.
So let's look at some of the things. I know I've had farmers coming here, and some farmers have told me, you can grow cucumbers at the back of your house, for example.
Exactly. Those are the kind of things that are really effective to grow in this kind of limited environment. They are relatively small items and can be very carefully spaced and produced and harvested. So let's go to the next step. You go to the harvest stage. What comes when it comes out? Because you're using things like containers, I think you're already thinking in a more industrial manner. You can move from the farming area to the processing area in a drop of a hat. One of the things about many food supply chains right now is the huge distances that are traveled from where it's farmed. You're going to there. You get this stuff out. You must now concentrate it out into a semi-urban area through those feeder roads. Let's be very clear. By providing feeder roads, you're opening up the rural areas. That's an advantage. Yeah. But in the process, some of those roads are not maintained. So before you know, the trucks are going in there, getting stuck. The food is rotting.
The cost of transportation also
is going into it. So when you have this more compact environment, because a lot of the world is going towards urban areas. Nothing wrong with the rural areas. I'm from a rural area myself, and we cannot be cut off. But if you can maximize the impact of farming in both the urban and rural areas, what are you doing? You're improving the quality of life of people in both places.
Cost of feeding might also reduce if more and more
Over
people,
time.
Yeah, over time.
Exactly.
If more and more people in the urban areas
create localized, food items.
So let's talk theoretically now, AB. So let's say you're able to start this hydroponic farm at the back of your house, or maybe
in a region near one's residence, exactly.
Whatever it is, and you're growing
cucumbers, or exactly.
Somebody's growing watermelons somewhere,
exactly.
And now, if this idea spreads, so that means we're going to have more localized cucumber, carrot,
all that good stuff, exactly.
Within River State, for example.
For instance.
So that means I don't need to travel down to fruit garden you could just tell me I'm here, come by.
There you can now use technology. Somebody who has that can put up, post in advance. We shall be harvesting X tons of such and such by next week, Thursday. Some other people can book. I want this. Even some of the people at the fruit garden could also be interested in getting from these sources. Yes, it means at least right here around them in the state, they're getting it rather than waiting for it to come from wherever else, whether down in Calabar or up in Kwara or Maiduguri. And the same idea there in Maiduguri, they too could also have their own farms.
Yeah, have their farms. So they don't depend on the rural areas, because even those who stay in the urban centers, anywhere else, in Maiduguri, in Kano, for example, they still have to wait for the farmers to bring out the food.
Exactly. So it's not as if it's taking anybody's jobs away. It's just diversifying the sources of food. You'll never. And I don't think the goal is to eliminate the rural farmer. That's not the goal. But the goal is to say, wherever you are, there's a quantum of production, agricultural production you can do. And that can what you're doing is, you're not going to come to zero. Even every country that says we want to have electric cars by 2030, there are still going to be hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of combustible engines going. Maybe it'll take a generation or two for them to entirely fade away. Because think about the Ford Model T, that first mass-produced it doesn't exist anywhere, but it must have taken some years before they kept improving, then they eliminated it. So there's going to be a time, maybe not in our immediate lifetime, when there'll be no combustible engine cars. But for now, just like this farming, there'll be a time where there'll be mostly farming in the outskirts, and then it might now move closer to the urban areas, and the proportions will change. Right now, I think in the U.S., only about 3% of their farming production is done by these alternate methods. But at 3%, that means there's 97% growth.
From zero?
From zero. From 3 to 100 is 97%. Even if you get up to 30 or 50, that's a huge amount extra. And it gives room for people in the fabrication sector, because fabricating the shelves, doing the piping, making the electronics, solar panel, all that is the byproduct of trying to increase this.
So let's talk a bit. We have just about 10 more minutes.
No problem.
Let's talk a bit about what some people who, because I read about this a few months ago, who are skeptical about hydroponic farming, and that is the X factor when it comes to agriculture. There are people who are adherent to the idea of organic farming, that there's this taste or flavor that only a plantain that came from
the bush,
from Amasoma, or maybe somewhere in Otueke, would have, that maybe the banana that you grow in the backyard may not have. There's that organic feel, that X factor. The nutrients are the same. You've put in nitrogen and all of that into the water,
your fertilizer and all that, exactly.
But it's still not that same taste.
You can't argue with a person and their taste bud. But sometimes what you find is, if you do a blind taste test, you don't tell them in advance that this came from here, they can't tell a difference. It's psychological. Sometimes it's when you are told that this one is from here, then you are waiting for the difference. If you're not told, you might. But at the end of the day, nothing, I think, in the world is 100% acceptable to 100% of the people.
True.
But we're looking at, again, what are some of the design changes and thoughts we can incorporate? Look, there are tall buildings. You could have a situation where a tall building, the first 1 or 2 levels are parking. The next 1 or 2 levels are farm, like urban farms.
Yeah, that's becoming popular in Lagos, because in Lagos you have parking spaces
below.
Not just below now, but they're all
stacked parking.
up. Yeah,
Absolutely.
so you have like 4 or 5 stories. It's just parking.
Precisely. And, depending on how high the building is, you can have the earlier levels parking, some additional levels farming, localized farming. An upper level could be a commercial level that has shopping center and everything. Then you can have residences. That's a multi-use building. So from an architect's perspective, I'm seeing how you can incorporate these ideas into the very urban fabric of a city.
Now, let's talk about the urban fabric of a city. Now, I have with me here, this is from last year, May 2001. This is a fantastic, I don't know if you can see it.
I can see it.
Oh,
right.
yes. Now, this is from Italy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they're theorizing that you can get high-rise buildings. This looks like maybe like a 15-story building. I'm saying you can definitely see these are apartments.
Right. Balconies and
Balconies,
all that.
yes. But they're not growing fruits, Ebi. They're growing trees.
You see, again, it's about what kind of structure do you provide? What kind of load can it bear? How do you actually plant those trees and anchor them? Because depending on how they're planted, they can be anchored up against the building.
I'm seeing the picture and I'm shocked.
And they are looking at the sun and they are calling in the sun. So look at that. It's a different look from the glass and steel slick look. But what that does, you find that the buildings within will be anything between 2 and 7 degrees cooler. Meaning that the cooling load will also be reduced. And the cooling load right now is controlled by air conditioning. Air conditioning gas has certain artifacts that go out into the atmosphere and contribute to global warming.
Yes, so they'll increase temperature outside.
Exactly. So when you minimize the load on cooling, you're minimizing how much of those gases are going to global warming. And that kind of building is helping the overall issue of global warming. Right now, buildings contribute between 35 and 40% to global warming. So anything we can do to reduce the building's impact on the environment is a useful thing.
I have to agree with you that, because I remember seeing a report that New York, is virtually scraped off of vegetation.
Exactly.
Apart from Central Park area.
That's it. The
almost
rest
everywhere
is hardscape.
It's concrete and it's so hot.
It's what they call a heat island. If you look at satellite images of places like New York, apart from Central Park, literally every other street is a heat island. That's in the summer. In the summer, it is so hot, children come out and illegally open fire hydrants just to keep cool.
Yeah, just to keep cool.
That's how hot it is. And you'd be surprised, somewhere in the northeast of America, yes, it gets that hot. The buildings are tall. The breeze at the ground level, sometimes it rushes, sometimes it's dead still. People perspire. Believe me, it's uncomfortable. But with green areas, that's why people flock to Central Park, because nature, when the sun comes down and hits tarmac, it reflects right back up. That whole area is hot. When the sun falls on grass, it absorbs. And people find it cooler to be there. And of course, Central Park is, I think, one of the world's largest green areas. So breezes there, very comfortable. They have physical landscaping elements, bridges, streams, everything. So people love to go there. And that just says anything to do with nature and planting. Our conversation today is about agriculture, the planting for food. But in general, anywhere you can introduce green, living plants, first of all, it connects you as a human being to nature. That feels much more comfortable. I think in our very genes, we like it when we have some contact with nature. Even in a building like this that is high, the fact that you may be able to step out onto your balcony and see 1 or 2 plants, that's a very amazing one. But even in many other people's small houses that they have on their balcony, they have a little flower pot, and you can tend to it and watch a seedling bloom. It's very therapeutic. That is a lot of what architecture has to do. Cater to the human soul.
So then let's get to you as an architect. you live in Port Harcourt. You've lived in Port Harcourt for years. When I look at a lot of the buildings around over the past, say, 10, 15 years, correct me, but are they incorporating this idea of having nature immersed with the designs? We see concrete, the slabs increasing. As Borough Park is probably like maybe
one of the few places.
I know there was the rehabilitation of the Obunabali Transamadi Road where there was a roundabout.
Yeah, and they made a wide green area there.
But are those really green plants? Those things don't look exactly green to me. Apart from the park, the Potako Park, Pleasure Park,
where they added, yes.
Yeah, but do we see a lot of greenery, trees? We don't get to see a lot of those.
One of the funny things, a few years ago, the River State Institute of Architects did an architecture program, a national architecture program, West African Architects Festival. And of course, we invited architects from all over Nigeria and outside the country, and they came. And these kind of programs make people come for touristic reasons and all that.
Yes.
And people have heard of Port Harcourt as the Garden City. Now, in our studies as architects, when we were studying ancient buildings, we knew about the Hanging Gardens of Babylon.
Oh, yeah, one of the
seven wonders of the world. So many of our architects colleagues were coming to town. They're coming to the Garden City, and I don't know what they were thinking they would see. Unfortunately, as we were driving them from the airport, they were looking around and saying, where are these gardens in the Garden City? And sadly, we didn't have a good answer. To answer your question, many people tend to go towards hard landscaping elements, either concrete paving or interlock. And so they don't really leave as much green area as we like. The rules.
Is it the fault of the individual who wants to build, or the architect who's not providing enough information?
Now, the rules state a certain percentage of green area you must leave. But an architect is bound by professionalism and sense of responsibility to do that. But when you don't use an architect, sometimes these people get away with just literally paving the whole surface under the excuse of it takes too much to maintain. That it may be a cost to maintain, but I would argue that the benefit of having greens within your compound on your health actually give you a benefit that the cost of maintenance cannot compare with. And when well designed, landscaping has both soft and hard elements, so that in combination, it soothes the soul. I cannot go away from it. Your soul is at peace. There was a day, you see, it's amazing what ignorance does. One day, many years ago, I was in my house. I was tired and bored. I wanted to go out. I did not want to go to another building. So I got up and I drove to Isaac Park. I parked outside and I walked in. That day, the place was so immaculately groomed, clean, beautiful, peaceful. The sun was dappling on the grass. I sat down with a book and I read. And I had a vision of, I could imagine different families seated there on mats with their children playing, and people just listen to music on their headphones. That's how I want the park to be. Now, as I was about just walking around, some people now come to me and start trying to threaten me. What am I doing here? I said, I pay taxes. I have every right to be here. I didn't know that. That's why ignorance. Some people told me, look, you could have been assaulted. It's great not to know I could have been assaulted. Maybe I was lucky that day, but I should not have a fear of going to a public park.
Yeah.
And I should not necessarily need to go to Pleasure Park to enjoy greens. There should be some freely accessible, properly maintained public areas within our fair city. So it's a decision that our town planners, very excellent colleagues in the built industry, the town planners, have the opportunity of defining these spaces. It's not every piece of ground that we must sell to make houses or buildings. We have overbuilt.
Because there's also the argument that, look, the population is increasing, we need more homes.
We can go vertical. We don't have to have everybody on one level. We can go like the building you're showing me here. Can you imagine how many families are successful? So another person would say, hey, but our services don't support elevators and all that. We have not tested ourselves. I have found that there is no problem that we don't have the solution to if we're dedicated. there is no problem. Think about it. Right now, when there's no light, we put on alternative power. If we decide that a building like this must be powered, we'll combine both sustainable energy and fossil fuels to make sure that the minimum you expect at any time for a tall building is elevators to work.
No matter what happens.
No matter what happens. So that's the minimum irreducible generator you need. To power just your vertical systems and your water system would not be the same as powering the whole building. So what I've seen done in Lagos, where they have high rise, that they have two sets or two banks of generators all day in the daytime between public power and generators. They have a smaller gen. And that elevator is on a UPS. That's what the electrical engineers do. They are geniuses at that. They make sure that that elevator cannot fail or stop. In between public power going and the generator kicking up, the smaller generator, there's a UPS. It doesn't stop. It's seamless to you. Then what you're promised typically living in those places is that between the hours of perhaps 7 p.m. at night and 12 midnight or 1 a.m., they will run the generator that powers all your things, your microwaves, your ions and everything. Or they might run it from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. In the daytime, they're only running the small gen. That's where you can survive in that high-rise building. And in the daytime that people now put an inverter to carry the TV for the children. It's expensive because, hey, why should you buy an inverter? But you're living a quality of life. So we can go vertical. We don't have to all be on one level.
All right, we can go vertical. Well, always fascinating conversations when you get to have someone like architect A.B. Bozimo here with you in the studio. We're going to open the phone lines. We're talking about alternative agricultural practice, designing them. This is where architecture has reached out a hand to embrace agriculture. We'll be talking about alternative means, how we can start to think of interesting ways of developing our agricultural sector right in the comfort of either your home, right, or maybe alternative sources. You made mention of using containers.
Absolutely.
We can start to design spaces for such and such greenhouses and things like that.
And it's important to say something. As presented, it looks as if architecture is reaching out to agriculture. In truth, if you look at agriculture very critically, it needs architecture to be most effective. Otherwise, that word waste comes up not just in the produce, but in the process. There are certain farms where there's high retention because the way the workers move between point A to point B is effective, as opposed to other farms where people just feel that the work is so hard because they have too much travel time, too much walking, not enough comfort when they are resting. So the design of the farm, its processes, and its facilities has a lot to do with the welfare of the workers. And if well designed, when well designed, you'll find that you just get more yield from the products well as more yield from the people. So architecture actually wraps every sector, whether it's the health sector, education sector, the agriculture. There's nothing which, when approached from a structured architectural and engineering viewpoint, cannot be improved. So this is just a conversation in this sector, but it actually cuts across even the standard farms. The standard farms, when well laid out, are better. They are more efficient and they yield more, which means whatever effort you make into investing in design, you get it back faster in your yields.
Investing in design. And investing in design doesn't seem to be something that's very popular in this point.
It's because people have not been able to make that connection, which is why we're having this conversation. When you invest in design, sometimes right now people think of design as an expense. Actually, it's an investment. Even in your house, when you have a poorly designed, or let me call it built building, it's your building, you're not going to go anywhere, but you don't know why every morning you're irked by something. There's a door you open the door and you have to put on the light switch at the back of the door. It's not killing you, but it's irritating when you know that on a good day you should have been in the right place. So it irks you. It's not really in front of you, but it's irking you. When a thing is properly designed, it's like air. Everything works properly. Architecture is about problem solving. So anytime an architect takes a brief, he's first of all trying to elicit the problems you are trying to solve and then proposing solutions in the built environment. Not every solution is a building. Sometimes something as simple as signage or proper markings or proper coloration can solve the problem. So it's not every solution in architecture that is a building, but in many cases it could be a building or improving an existing system.
Improving an existing system. All right, so let's get a few calls. Let's interact with you for a few minutes before we wrap up today on the Midday Dialogue. 0817-923-0002, 0817-923-0003, 0817-923-0007, and then the female caller line is 0817-923-0009. I'll take the numbers again, please. 0817-923-0002, 0817-923-0003, 0817-923-0007, and then the female caller line is 0817-923-0009. WhatsApp and Telegram is 0809-030-6416, 0809-030-6416. 90.3, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, welcome please.
Okay, this is Clive on the line.
Welcome,
I have a question for architect AB.
Yes, please.
Okay, I've been listening to everything he has to say, and he was talking about agriculture in containers. Now, when you talk about greenhouses and you see the polyethylene materials and films that are used to build them to encourage sunlight, how then do you, if you plant in the containers, what's the guarantee, or how do you ensure that the yield from what you're planting will be as productive in terms of the size? Because plants definitely need sunlight. And then when you plant them in the containers, how do you ensure that they get enough sunlight? That's one. And then secondly, there are times when the plants need herbicides. So when you decide to spray the herbicide inside those containers, how usually when you're doing all that, you're supposed to do it in an airy environment because of the effects of those chemicals to the health. So how are you also going to take care of that?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Well, Clive, brilliant questions.
So for the herbicides, you'll find that a lot of the spraying patterns that we have in the outdoors is because of how it's planted. You just need to liberally spray.
Yeah,
with the environment, remember, one of the advantages of the container perhaps is the controlled environment. So it's possible maybe there to introduce the herbicides in a much more targeted manner.
Okay.
And I still think there'll
maybe
be
on the leaves.
Exactly. And I still think there'll be a procedure where for that time frame, perhaps there is an opening of the container. There could be extractors after a certain time frame. You know, there are methods that are associated with this. Then the other thing about light, plants need light, not necessarily sunlight. So a lot of this will have certain lights installed inside by the electrical engineers, which are powered ideally by solar panels, so that you're not reliant on what they call it. And you can now adjust the plant's growing time by, now the normal thing now is 12 hours day and night. What if you make it 14 hours? What effect could that have on the growth? So you can actually enhance your productivity of your farm based on the fact that you can much more narrowly control the environment in which farming is going on.
Well, Clive, I can't thank you enough. That was a fantastic question there, and it's amazing how, you know, from the most mundane of questions, you may actually just, you know, open a gateway into how these improvements can be made. So, Clive,
brilliant question.
Brilliant question. Thank you very much. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Good afternoon. Oh dear. Apologies. That was the female caller line, I do believe. 0817-923-0002, 0817-923-0003, 0817-923-0007, and the female caller line is 0817-923-0009. 19.3. Good afternoon. Hello. Hello. Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hi. Good afternoon. Welcome, please.
Yes, sir. I'm Nandi calling from Marine Days. I've been following your program.
Thank you, Nandi.
Yes, I just want to know, can I get the contact of your guest so that I can be able to get more advice? Because I want to do similar thing, similar design at my place.
Okay,
At
all right.
and I normally give my social handles.
Okay, well, so just we'll give social handles out at the end of the show. 92.3. Oh dear. Okay, all right. Someone here says, I can't help liking his voice. With my heart, I appreciate his humility. Thank you very much, Mr. AB. Just wondering if the Nigerian government knows you. I'm sure they have his birth certificate somewhere.
Hopefully not for anything bad.
Bad, yes, hopefully. 92.3. Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, please.
Good afternoon, professional.
Good
Welcome.
afternoon.
Yeah, it's amazing how JD on the line.
Welcome,
It's
JD.
amazing how architect Bozimo makes other discipline looks like elective.
Not at all.
I couldn't agree with you more, JD. I have to agree. It's true.
Connected to architect others are elective. It's amazing. I really appreciate his sense of analysis and his understanding of his profession.
Thank you, sir.
I think all what he said is true. As a matter of fact, in the U.S. right now, some guys are growing some illicit plants in their buildings and lighting it up with electric lights.
Right.
If you watch Discovery Channel, you find out that most of them, because they've been raided off the bushes, they've gone to built-up areas and they do their thing inside their flats.
Right.
And they do what is called soilless agriculture.
Yeah.
That's
That's
it.
actually very possible. Thank you, Architect Bozino, for making our own profession look elective.
No, we're all in this together. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Well, that's the much we can take. I just have two things to address before I'll be saying my goodbyes today on the Midday Dialogue. All right. So the first thing I would like to have you, Actor AB, so please share your social media handles.
Okay, I can be reached at AB Bozimo on the normal Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at AB Bozimo.
Okay, so there you have it. So go on social media and check him out, AB Bozimo. Now, the second and the last thing I have to ask our guests this afternoon, our conversation the previous hour had to do with spouses, teaching their wives, or in very rare cases, their husband how to drive. Did you ever have that experience?
No, my wife knew how to drive, had a car before I met her, so that was not the issue for me.
That was not
But for me, I was taught by my father.
Okay.
And my father is one very orderly person. After a sad day, when I tried to steal the car, drove about 25 meters and I was caught.
Wow.
Then he just saw me and ignored me and went into the house. And it was horrible because I hadn't even done the crime when I was caught. So I got back in the house, got the necessary dressing down, and then he just promised me, if you pass your WAEC, I will teach you to drive. So that kept me off the car, and I had to pass my WAEC. And then he made me do the 3 learner's permits, each 3 months apart.
Oh.
Then he made me, at this point I'm enthused. I knew everything in the driver's code.
Yeah.
And then I went in Zaria, then I had to sit down in front of the VIO himself, and he tested me on the highway code. And it was only when I passed that they allowed me to go and do the driver's test, which fortunately I passed with flying colors.
So you're one of the few persons who have actually done that in the past 20 years.
My father doesn't play. He doesn't cut corners. You do everything by the book. So that was how it was for me.
Okay, all right. So it's been a pleasure. And my name is Jude. It's been an honor, an absolutely humbling experience sharing with you. Something tells me I've gotten myself into trouble with that conversation I had in the afternoon.
They're waiting for you outside.
Something tells me. So, Abby, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. I'm a big James Bond fan. So I'd like to sign out today with one of the songs. In fact, most of the songs we're playing today have been on the theme James Bond. Some of you may have picked on it, but most people didn't. So I have View to a Kill, Skyfall, and GoldenEye. Which one of them did you see? Which one of them? The other ones, I'm sure GoldenEye.
I've seen Skyfall, I've seen GoldenEye, I've seen View to a Kill.
So
I've seen all 3. Let's just do GoldenEye.
GoldenEye, Tina Turner
Yes.
is how we end our show tonight on the Midday Dialogue.
Today.
Yes,
Jude, you're
tomorrow.
too used to the night. Today.
Yeah, today. Thank you. today. I'm used to the night. All right, tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., yours truly reporting for duty, willing and able. We're getting through all the stories and all the segments for your fun and pleasure as well. I can't wait for Friday. You know Fridays are my best days, all right? All right, so the media dialogue here. Hard facts coming up here with Dyer and a few just after the news. This Golden Eye.
That's what's up.